So good morning, afternoon, everybody. First thing that we're basically going to be doing is taping our poster board down. This can be done on the surface of a table, but you'll probably have to have a wide open space to, have enough space to actually put it down. I'm completely fine if you go through the process of actually cutting the poster board into pieces. I'm completely fine with that. Whatever kind of allows your, basically the problem to be solved in your space is good with me. But what you want to do to make sure that the problem or the assignment is done cleanly, as opposed to kind of making a big mess, you want to use your masking tape that's going to be required for this project to tape the edges of the poster board, whether you cut it into pieces or leave it as a full piece. You want to tape the edges down about 1/4 of an inch from the edge in. All right, so you're basically going to be covering up a good portion, well, not really a good portion, but about 1/4 of an inch from your edge. If it's not completely straight, that's not that much of a problem. It will not cause too many issues, but you want to start things off as cleanly as possible so that you can end things up as cleanly as possible. All right, so get a sense of how long your poster board is. Take the tape, put it from one side to the other. Smooth it down. Same thing on all edges. About 1/4 inch, top and bottom, and the sides. All right, so you want to basically tape it down to where your poster board is smooth, okay? And then from there, you want to, following the guideline sheet, you want to make a center line on your poster board. This does not have to be completely exact, but you want a center line. And then on your left side, you're going to have approximately, well, not approximately, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces. All right, so you're going to create a column with 6 spaces in those columns. Take your tape and just make sure that your tape does not go past that center point. Try your best to make it as clean and as straight as possible. Make things go a little bit faster. All right, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces. And then on your right hand side, you won't be working on this at the beginning, but you want to take your right hand side and go about the center down, to divide this side in halves. All right, so this is how your first kind of setup is going to be with the masking tape and the poster board. Taping all the way around the edges, 1/4 of an inch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces here. On the right hand side, you're going to have a top half and a lower half. All right, and this is how I want you actually to go about preparing your the tape for your poster board. All right. Second thing is you want to go ahead and gesso the poster board. All right. Tape needs to be down first, and then gesso comes second. All right, everybody. Second stage of this. All right. You're still in the process of preparing the support. All right. And as I said, the support is just whatever you're going to apply the paint to. That support needs to be prepared so that you can actually apply the paint to it. So the second step in this, after you've gone through the process of applying the masking tape to the actual support, which is the poster board. We're going to go through and we're going to use what's called gesso. All right, so this is gesso, right, acrylic gesso, and you're going to be taking this acrylic gesso and you're going to be applying this to the entire surface. Do not worry about trying to only paint between the spaces. You can actually paint over the entire surface so that your support will be prepared. All right, this gesso is basically just a binder. I'm sorry, it is a I'm sorry, it's a binder for the support, but it basically just prepares the surface of the support so that the paint will actually flow across it easily. This has to be dry before you start painting. All right, so you want to take some time to apply this, allow it to dry, which doesn't take that long, but it does take some time. So allow it to dry, and then you want to basically move to the second stage, which will actually be starting the actual painting assignment. Okay, so real quick, just we're going to say a generous amount of paint on the surface of your brush, and this is what we're using that large brush for. And we're not really going to worry too much about trying to paint very cleanly. This is really just, really just needs to be applied to the surface. All right. So very generous with it. And one thing that I did forget to say, when you put your, when you're starting to put tape your poster board down, the poster boards usually, with the exception of poster boards that come from like Dollar Tree, usually your poster board has a waxy side and a more matte side. All right, so for this you want to use the matte side of your poster board. Do not use the waxy side. The waxy side will not tape to the gesso very well. The waxy side won't take to the gesso very well, whereas the matte side will, you'll be able to apply the gesso evenly without too many problems. To prepare both sides, all right? So we're gonna be using both sides. One side, the left-hand side, is gonna be the first part of this assignment. The right-hand side is going to be the second part of this assignment. So go ahead and gesso both sides. All right, and as you see, it's not being extremely clean. I'm not really worried about it being extremely clean, because once this dries, we're going to be basically painting inside those spaces. And once the paint is dry, once you finish this assignment, you are literally going to be peeling the tape off of it. And the tape not only kind of serves as a means of holding the assignment down or separating the different segments, it also creates a very clean line. All right, so that clean line makes it very easy to basically take a photograph of your assignment and turn it in, and it makes it look a lot more professional as opposed to making it look very messy. All right, so we just want to make sure that everything's prepared. Okay, this is the second stage of this first assignment, preparing the support for the actual paint. All right. All right, good evening, folks. I apologize. I'm doing this a little bit later than I had expected. I wanted to get this to you a little bit earlier so that you could actually start on things if you wanted to today, which most likely people aren't starting today. But what I'm going to be doing is actually finishing up the red value chart and the yellow value chart. And then basically after that, I'll take a picture of everything so that you can kind of see the differences based upon we're having a little bit of the reflective surface problems where you can't really see things as well, but I just want to make sure that everybody sees it as much as possible. As I said before, we go with 5 separate value studies, or value, I keep saying value studies, value charts and value points, and we're going to be going with the reds at this point in time to start off. And the first thing that you do, as I said, you can go your own route. I'm not stating that you have to do the way that I'm saying that you need to do it, but the way that I've done it for so long is kind of a little bit of an easier route to take to get to seeing all 5 of the different value changes. So to start off, I'm going to take a full body red that comes straight from the tube. I'm going to load my brush, full body red, and we're going to call that a normal value. All right, so since value is relative and value deals with the idea of light or dark value of a color, just as we looked at the light and dark value by itself up at the top, going from white to black or black to white, then we're going to say when we deal with color, color also has value. Only difference is for a value chart from white to black, there is no normal sense of value there. It's basically white and a number of shades of gray until you get to black. Whereas when we deal with color, you have the color that you recognize that comes straight from that tube. If we're talking about those primary colors, then this is going to be a normal value of red that comes straight from the tube. And then once we start adding white, we're going to call that a tint of that color. And then we go on the opposite side, we start adding black, we're going to say that we are shading that normal value. All right, so on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side, we're going to use tint. So I'm just going to pick up and load my brush with the red and the white, and we're going to use that. I'm going to load my brush, and you can see that we're using white to tint that red. And like I said, just up and down strokes, real quick and easy. Nothing really difficult about that. So we're going to call this a tint of red. We're going to have the normal value. We're going to skip all the way to the side to create the tint of that red. And that tint is going to give us enough room in between the tint and the normal value to create enough of a change between those two so that we can see that there is, you can actually see that there's enough space to where I can create a mid-range between a normal value and tint. All right, so we're going to add a little more of the red to that tint. And on your palette, once you see that you've made enough of a change between the two, then we can load our brush and then begin to add that to the support. And what you're trying to do is just to create a mid-range value between those two colors. And like I said, right now you can't really see that change too much because it's reflective. But once I take the picture, you'll be able to see the difference. All right. And once you get those values, then you want to clean your brush out. Get as much of that white or that tint out of the brush as possible, because if you start mixing the white into the shade, what you're going to find is you're going to have a tone. All right, a tone is quite a bit different than tone is different than value. So we want to make sure that we have a value chart and not a tonal chart. All right, any color that is mixed with gray is going to give you a tone, not so much a shade or a tint. It's going to be a tone. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to jump all the way to the other side here, and we're going to add some red with black. And you want to add a little bit, you don't want to go too deep red, too deep into the shade of red, or you'll get the sense that you're actually looking at a very, almost a black red. We're not trying to get that. We're trying to load our brush with enough red and black to create a shade of that color. We're not trying to go all the way into a blackened version of it. All right. Load your brush and then create the red, the shade of red. And just as we had on the other side, we have enough room between the normal value and the shade to create a third range between. So we can add a little bit of that black to our red, and we're going to create a second shade here. Okay, so we should be able to see kind of regular steps from your lightest value all the way to your darkest value. All right, and as again, once I take the photograph of this a little bit later, you'll be able to see the difference there. All right, so I'm going to clean my palette off and clean all of this red pigment off of here, and then we'll do yellow. And then once we have the yellow, we'll be finished with this entire side of the, well, actually will be considered finished with the first half of this assignment. All right, and you'll have an entire week to finish these things up. All right, so give me just a second, I'll clean this off and we'll get to that other part, and then we'll call this quits. All right, so we are going to get to yellow. Yellow is actually the kind of the most, one of the more difficult ones to deal with, just due to the fact that if you add too much black to your yellow, you're going to find that the black will completely take over, just due to the fact that yellow is a very light value color. So we're going to go into our tint first, tint being the color lighter than the hue's normal value. So the yellow, the yellow that comes from the tube is going to be considered the normal value of yellow. All right, so we're going to take that, cleaning my brush off. And like I said, for anyone who wants to challenge themselves, they can actually go through and create 7 different value studies or value charts. All right, 7 different values within the value chart. All right, so we're doing just 5. All right, so this is the little easier version of it. So since yellow is one of the lighter values, not one of the lighter, but the lightest value color within the primary colors, then you're not going to see a lot of change within the tint. All right, because it's very close to the light already. Very similar to what you had in blue, where you're not going to see a lot of change in the shade because blue is very dark already. All right, so we're going to add our yellow normal value in the center. All right, so that's going to be our normal value of yellow. From that point, the tint of that is going to be very, very light. All right, almost to the point where it's going to look white on camera here, but we have to make it very light so that we can have another range that we can put in the middle. Okay, so we're going to make it very, very light. All right, so that's going to be the lightest value, and then we're going to add just a little bit of yellow to that to make the range, the mid-range value between the shade, between the tint and the normal value of the yellow. I'm going to try our best, and there's not going to be a lot of difference between the normal value yellow and the mid-range between those two. Not a lot of room to play between normal value and the tint unless you go very, very light with the yellow, with the tint of yellow. All right, so now I'm going to clean out the brush. We don't want any color contamination with the black to create shade. Here's where you have to be very careful. So with the shade of yellow, the darkest shade of yellow, we are not trying to go black. All right, so try your best not to make your last value or your darkest value the shade. Try your best not to put too much black in that pigment, in the normal value of the yellow. Because if you do, then you're going to find that your value for yellow is going to be so dark that you're not really going to be able to make stepped changes into that value. All right, so we're going to take a lot of yellow and just add a little bit of black to that. We are not trying to make it look very dark or extremely dark. We're just trying to get a little bit of a shade in that yellow. So you're not using a lot of black. All right, so it's about the shade that we want, all the way to the side over here. And that's very light, so we can actually add, once you put it down, you can kind of tell if you can use more of your black to shade. And just kind of judge it, because you're not trying to match how dark your shade of red and blue and black are. You're dealing with a very light value color, so you don't need a very dark value shade. All right, so this is going to be our shade of yellow here. I'm going to clean out my brush just a little bit so that we can make a value change between the shade and the normal value. Okay, so we want to be careful with this one. We have enough room here to make a value change between our darkest value of the yellow and our normal value. So we've made enough room to create a change in value that's going to be a midpoint between the absolute shade and the normal value of yellow. Okay, all right, so this is our value study. And what I think I might do is add a little more yellow, because that's even just a tad darker than I want it to be. So we want a clean change between those two values. And it's almost like you want kind of a stair step into your darkest value from the shade, oh, I'm sorry, from the tint to the shade. So we're trying to make almost like a stair step, and even change each time you move from one value to the next. Okay, that's a little bit better. Okay, so this is the finish of this particular side. This is all that we're doing for this week. All right, not extremely difficult, but don't be too hard on yourself. Don't worry too much about making mistakes. That's part of it. All right, if you do make a mistake, what I would suggest is to go ahead and buy a couple of poster boards. If you make a mistake, I'm completely fine with you cleaning up that mistake on a separate piece of poster board. You don't have to do a whole other assignment. So let's say you do well on, let's say you do well on your black, your blue, your red, and your yellow is just not working. Then I'm okay with you cutting a strip about the same size as your yellow, and then just redoing that on that strip, and then just take a picture of that. And I'm seeing that you're able to make those changes, then we're good, no problem at all. Okay, so I'm going to stop the camera here. I'm going to take a photograph so that you'll be able to see what these look like without all of the glare and all of that. And I'll put this on in the Dropbox. All right. Okay, folks, good luck with the work.